You know, um, usually when you think about a bully, there's this expectation of visibility.
Right, like you can literally see it happening.
Exactly. It is almost like a classic movie trope that we have all been, conditioned to look for.
Oh, totally. The 80s movie Bully.
Yeah. The kid getting shoved into a locker, the nasty note passed across the classroom, the obvious physical evidence of a fight in the hallway. You see the problem, you point at it, and you intervene.
Because there is a victim, an aggressor, and a tangible event.
Right. It's very clear-cut.
And we rely heavily on that tangibility. I mean, traditionally, school discipline and parental intervention, they require a binary set of facts.
Like, did it happen or not?
Exactly. It happened, there's physical proof, and therefore there is a clear disciplinary protocol to follow. Human nature prefers things to be visible so they can be categorized, processed, and ultimately dealt with.
But then, you step into the modern digital landscape of middle and high schools, and suddenly that visibility is just gone.
It's completely vanished.
The markers we were trained to look for have just evaporated. We're looking at a battlefield that is completely imperceptible to the naked eye.
Which is terrifying for parents.
It really is. And we've got a fascinating document on the desk today for you. Our mission for this deep dive is to take a massive stack of source material, highlighted by a really vital, incredibly eye-opening report titled The Invisible Frontier: Modern Cyberbullying and Clinical Interventions.
It is such a good read.
It's amazing. And we're going to figure out why the classic signs of bullying are dead and what terrifying new tactics have taken their place.
Yeah, it is essential reading for anyone who interacts with adolescents. The landscape hasn't just, shifted slightly.
Right.
It has completely transformed beneath our feet, leaving our institutional responses decades behind.
Okay, let's unpack this. The core premise here, and what you really need to understand today, is why parents, educators, and entire school districts are completely missing the modern realities of cyberbullying.
And they're just missing the signs.
Totally. What kids are facing today does not look anything like what we were taught to watch for.
No, not at all. And to really grasp the severity of this shift, we need to look beyond the smartphones and the apps. The technology is just the vehicle.
Okay, so what's the actual engine then?
Well, the core issue we are facing is a massive gap in our systemic detection. We currently lack the updated language required to even spot these modern tactics.
Like, we don't even know what to call it.
Exactly. If we do not have the vocabulary to identify the behavior, we simply cannot stop it. And even more critically, once we finally do identify the damage, we desperately need structured clinical pathways for the targeted students.
Because just catching the bully isn't enough.
Right. Punishing an offender doesn't magically erase the profound psychological fallout the victim is left carrying.
That is such a crucial point. So we're going to dive into the 3 modern cyberbullying tactics that parents and teachers most often miss.
Let's do it.
We are starting with the most insidious one, because this first tactic relies entirely on the absence of action.
Which sounds like an oxymoron.
I know, but it is a weapon forged out of literally nothing, which is what makes it completely invisible to any traditional monitoring software or hallway supervision. Let's talk about the deafening silence of group chat exclusion.
Oh, yeah. This is a highly calculated form of social isolation. Group chat exclusion involves a digital space, say, a thread for the whole sports team, the cast of the school play, or just a neighborhood friend group where the targeted student is deliberately left out.
Wait, let me play devil's advocate for a second here.
Sure.
Kids have been forming cliques and leaving people out since the dawn of time. I mean, not getting picked for the kickball team or not being invited to sit at the cool table in the cafeteria hurts, but it isn't exactly new.
No, it's not new.
Right, so why are we classifying a group chat exclusion as a clinical crisis rather than just standard age-old teenage drama?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to look at adolescent neurobiology. The adolescent brain is evolutionarily hardwired for social connection. In ancestral times, being ostracized from the tribe literally meant death.
Oh, wow, so it's a survival instinct.
Exactly. Today, the brain still processes social exclusion as a fundamental survival threat. But the difference between the cafeteria table and the modern group chat is the omnipresence of the exclusion.
Because it follows them home.
Yes. It isn't a single event that ends when the bell rings. The bullies quietly, subtly ensure the victim knows this active, ongoing digital world exists without them. It is a 247 reinforcement of their isolation.
I see. It's like everyone passing notes in a circle around you, constantly, but there's no physical note for the teacher to intercept.
That's a great analogy.
And because they never stop passing the invisible notes, you never get a break from feeling like an outcast. So how can parents or schools intervene if there's literally zero evidence?
It's incredibly difficult.
Like a kid comes home, they are completely devastated, but when a parent asks what happened, the answer is technically nothing. No one texted them anything mean, no one pushed them.
That is the specific detection challenge that makes this so dangerous. There is absolutely no platform-level evidence.
Right.
You cannot hand a school principal a printed screenshot of a conversation you were never invited to participate in. Detection relies entirely on the student's self-report.
And adolescents are notoriously reluctant to self-report social exclusion.
Extremely reluctant.
Because they don't want to admit they are the one being left out. It feels like, I don't know, admitting defeat or confirming that they are unlikable.
It carries an intense, paralyzing shame. Because the adults cannot see the bullying happening in real time, they are only going to see the behavioral aftermath.
So what are the red flags then?
Well, as a parent or an educator, the red flags are not going to be torn clothes or bruises. You are going to see sudden, severe social withdrawal. You will see their mood deteriorate rapidly, and very commonly you will see school avoidance.
That makes total sense. They are avoiding the physical environment where that invisible circle is being drawn around them every single day. The cognitive dissonance of acting normal in the hallway with kids who are actively excluding them in their pockets must be exhausting.
It drains them completely.
Okay, so if group chat exclusion leaves absolutely no evidence, this second tactic swings the pendulum to the opposite extreme. It uses technology to create entirely fake evidence.
And the sheer pace of technological advancement here is radically outstripping our institutional policies.
Here's where it gets really interesting and, frankly, terrifying. We're talking about the weaponization of technology through AI-generated images of minors.
Yeah, this one is rough.
The source material outlines how bullies are taking a classmate's face, just a standard everyday photo pulled from social media or a digital yearbook, and using artificial intelligence to map that face onto a highly realistic generated nude body.
Producing a completely fabricated, non-consensual image that looks indistinguishable from reality.
And this is happening right now, today, in middle schools and high schools across the country.
It's everywhere.
A kid doesn't need to be some high-level hacker on the dark web to do this anymore. The software is accessible, and the capability is sitting right in their pocket.
Which is wild to think about.
But how do authorities even begin to combat this? You are essentially fighting a ghost. The image is legally and technically fake, but the emotional trauma inflicted on that kid is 100% real.
And this is creating a massive institutional blind spot. When a student or a parent bravely brings this fabricated image to a school administration, they frequently hit a bureaucratic wall.
What do you mean?
Well, existing reporting systems and Title IX frameworks simply were not designed for this vector of attack.
Because Title IX and traditional harassment frameworks are built around real physical evidence and physical bodies.
Yes.
If the image isn't real in the traditional sense, how does a school categorize it? Is it sexual harassment if the body in the photo doesn't actually belong to the student?
That exact ambiguity creates a dangerous policy paralysis. Administrators are forced to consult legal counsel to figure out how to classify a crime against a pixelated body that does not exist.
And meanwhile, the kid is just waiting.
Right. While the bureaucracy stalls, the student is left actively suffering. We need to look at the psychological mechanism at play here. Why does a fake image cause real trauma?
Because to the rest of the school, the lie is just as entertaining as the truth.
Partially, yes. But internally, the victim's brain processes the event as a genuine physical exposure.
Really? Even though they know it's fake?
Even though now, when a student discovers that an image of their face on a nude body is circulating, their visual cortex processes the image, and their amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, fires up an extreme panic response.
Wow.
The logical part of the brain saying that is not my body is completely overridden by the biological panic of social exposure.
So the brain doesn't care that logic says it is AI.
Yeah.
The social destruction happening in the hallways and in the group chats is identical to if the photo were real.
Exactly. Therefore, the psychological aftermath escalates dramatically from what we saw with group chat exclusion. We move from social withdrawal to an acute trauma response.
That is just heartbreaking.
The level of severe shame is paralyzing. The source document explicitly notes that this specific type of reality-violating abuse is leading, in many cases, to suicidal ideation. The student feels entirely stripped of their autonomy and their reality.
It is a complete violation of their identity.
It really
If
is.
AI relies on fabricating a lie, the most devastating weapon a bully has left is actually the exact opposite.
Weaponizing the truth.
Yes, weaponizing the truth.
Yeah.
This brings us to the third tactic. We just talked about the fabrication of things that never actually happened. Now, we have to look at turning private pasts into public nightmares.
Moving from the artificial to the deeply, painfully personal.
Right. The third tactic is doxing and screenshot leaks.
Oh, this is a big one.
This happens when a completely private direct message suddenly becomes a public post for the whole school to see, or a student's home address gets casually dropped into a massive group thread.
Or those old conversations.
Yes, perhaps the most insidious version. A screenshot of an old, vulnerable conversation. Maybe from 2 years ago, when two kids were best friends and sharing their deepest insecurities, is suddenly circulated to an entire grade after a falling out.
What's fascinating here is the element of time. We have to analyze the sheer psychological torture of the wait.
The wait.
Yes, once you send a message, whether you are 14 or 40, it exists on someone else's device. When a friendship fractures, the victim knows that highly sensitive information is out there,
Just sitting there.
sitting in someone else's camera roll. They have just been waiting for the other shoe to drop ever since.
Man, it's like a ticking time bomb in someone else's pocket.
That is exactly what it feels like.
You are just waiting to walk into the cafeteria one Tuesday morning, look at the way people are whispering, and realize the bomb finally went off.
And the detection challenge for educators is incredibly complex because the harm radiates outward, far beyond the originating platform.
Right, it doesn't stay on just one app.
No, the initial vulnerable text might have happened on Snapchat, but the screenshot is circulated on Instagram, discussed on Discord, and whispered about during second period.
It's everywhere all at once.
By the time a parent or teacher sees the fallout, the source is buried, and the damage is ubiquitous across the student's entire social ecosystem.
We talked about the acute trauma response of the AI images. What is the mechanism behind the trauma for screenshot leaks? Because just the anticipation of the leak alone sounds physiologically exhausting.
It is incredibly taxing on the nervous system. The psychological aftermath here presents as chronic hypervigilance.
Meaning they're always on edge.
Yes, the nervous system gets stuck in a loop of fight or flight. The student is constantly scanning their environment, waiting for the next leak, the next rumor. The smartphone is no longer a communication tool.
It becomes a loaded weapon in their pocket.
Precisely.
Every time the phone buzzes or chimes with the notification, it triggers a literal cortisol dump in their brain.
Which is exactly why you see severe sleep disruption. The brain's threat detection center is hijacked.
It won't let them rest.
It will not allow the student to power down and achieve deep sleep because it views the buzzing phone on the nightstand as a literal physical threat to their survival. Their safe, private life has been permanently breached.
Okay, let's take a step back and look at these three together.
Sure.
We have group chat exclusion, which relies on silence and the absence of action. We have AI-generated images, which rely on the fabrication of reality. And we have doxing and screenshot leaks, which weaponize private truths.
Very different approaches.
Yeah, these are three vastly different methods of attack.
Distinct methods, but they all converge on the exact same psychological target.
Despite the varying tactics, the source text highlights that they all leave an identical trauma signature on a student. If you're listening to this and you have kids in your life, this is the pattern you need to watch for.
Let's synthesize those behavioral tells. Whether a child is being silently ostracized, framed with a fabricated image, or exposed through a leaked private text, the resulting trauma manifests in a shared set of symptoms.
What are those symptoms?
Targeted kids suffer from profound, debilitating shame. They exhibit massive social withdrawal, pulling away from activities they used to love.
Like quitting the soccer team out of nowhere.
Exactly. You will see marked sleep disruption and plummeting grades because their cognitive load is entirely consumed by managing the trauma.
They just don't have the brain space for algebra.
They really don't. And perhaps the most difficult barrier for parents, a near total refusal to talk about it.
Because to talk about it with an adult is to make it real.
It makes it tangible.
It feels like a whole new level of exposure, and they're already drowning in exposure. So what does this all mean?
We have to shift our focus.
Right. We know the detection conversation, figuring out how to update the rulebooks, train the teachers, and rewrite Title IX policies. That happens at the administrative level. That takes time.
A lot of time.
Time that a kid in the middle of a panic attack does not have. Which means we have to pivot to the clinical conversation. how do we treat the targeted kids right now?
The clinical conversation requires a structured, dedicated partner. Schools simply cannot manage this level of psychological triage on their own.
Because teachers are educators, not licensed trauma therapists.
Exactly. And the source material actually points to a specific model as a blueprint for how we fix this. An organization called MentalSpace School.
Oh, right.
They sit squarely on the clinical side of this crisis, acting as an analytical case study for effective intervention.
Tell me more about how they work.
It is a highly structured framework designed specifically to address this modern trauma signature. MentalSpace School provides comprehensive K-12 mental health support, tailored specifically for Georgia schools, which is where this case study is based.
And the mechanics of how they intervene are frankly incredible, especially when you consider how agonizingly slow traditional mental health avenues can be.
The speed of intervention is the most critical factor in trauma care. MentalSpace School utilizes same-day teletherapy.
Same day. That's huge.
It is. We discussed the consolidation window in the brain earlier. When trauma happens, the brain begins wiring that event into long-term memory. Early, immediate intervention interrupts that loop before it sets into long-term PTSD.
So timing is everything.
Absolutely. When a student's private life has just been leaked to the entire grade, they cannot wait 3 weeks on a waiting list for an intake appointment. They need clinical support that very afternoon.
Furthermore, they provide dedicated therapist teams per school. It is not just a random crisis hotline where you get a different voice every time you call.
Continuity is key.
It is a dedicated team, which allows for continuity of care. The therapist actually understands the specific culture and the pressure cooker environment of that particular high school.
They handle crisis intervention, suicide prevention, and violence prevention, and they recognize that the student does not exist in a vacuum.
Right, there's a whole family involved.
Exactly. They offer staff wellness programs and family counseling, understanding that when a student is in crisis, the entire ecosystem around them requires stabilization.
That makes a lot of sense.
Crucially, the therapists are diverse and culturally competent, ensuring students can speak to professionals who inherently understand their specific cultural background and social context.
For the school administrators listening to this, there is a massive systemic benefit here, too. The sources mention they offer vital support for HB 268 compliance ahead of the July 2026 deadline.
That's a big deal in Georgia.
Yeah. For those outside of Georgia, HB 268 is essentially a state mandate recognizing this exact mental health crisis. It requires schools to have actionable, compliant mental health policies in place.
And MentalSpace is the bridge.
Exactly. MentalSpace is how schools are actually meeting that mandate. Plus, it is entirely private.
Fully high-pay and FERPA compliant.
Yes, keeping the students' records completely locked down, the exact safe container they need after being digitally exposed.
Let's look at the actual outcomes of this case study. Providing a safe container yields measurable results.
The data is phenomenal. Schools utilizing this model are seeing an 89% improvement in attendance.
Wow.
Remember how we discussed school avoidance being a primary behavioral tell? Early intervention is getting 89% of those kids back in the building.
That is incredible.
They are also seeing a 92% reduction in student anxiety and an 85% family satisfaction rate.
Those statistics represent the interruption of the trauma loop. That is what getting a child's life back looks like on paper.
And they have essentially leveled the financial playing field to make this happen. I mean, a clinical solution is useless if nobody can afford it, right?
Access is everything.
They take Medicaid, which means the cost is literally $0 for vulnerable families. And they work in-network with BCBS, Cigna, Aetna, UHC Humana, Peach State, CareSource, and AmeriGroup.
So they cover almost everyone.
The financial barrier to entry is basically removed. If you are an educator or parent looking for a blueprint on how to implement this kind of rapid response, the source document notes you can explore their framework at mentalspaceschool.com or reach out to their team at mentalspaceschool@eachtherapy.com.
It is a concrete, actionable step that communities can take to protect their students, while the slow wheels of policy and legislation attempt to catch up to the technology.
Okay, let's pull all of this together.
Yeah.
We have covered a massive amount of ground today.
We really have.
We have moved from the invisible, highly sophisticated modern tactics of digital bullies, the silence of the group chats, the AI fabrications, the weaponized screenshot leaks, to the very concrete clinical frameworks required to pull the victims out of the wreckage.
The core takeaway from you, whether you are a parent, an educator, an administrator, or just a curious mind, is that realizing the signs of bullying have fundamentally changed is your very first step.
You can't fight what you don't understand.
Exactly. You are no longer looking for the torn backpack or the black eye. You are looking for the profound social withdrawal, the chronic sleep disruption, the nervous system stuck in hypervigilance.
Right.
Recognizing that shifted psychological aftermath is how you recognize a modern cry for help.
We started this deep dive talking about how the visibility of bullying is gone. The battlefield has become entirely invisible. And that leaves us with one final lingering question to ponder long after you finish listening today.
What's that?
Well, since these new forms of digital warfare rely entirely on either the absence of evidence, the fabrication of evidence, or the weaponization of private evidence, are we approaching a future where the only true defense against cyberbullying isn't a digital monitor at all, but rather cultivating unshakable psychological resilience in our kids?
That is a profound thought.
Think about it. We'll catch you next time.